want to take you back to July of 2021. Kanye West had a listening party for his new album.
Took over Mercedes-Benz Stadium tonight, and it wasn't for Atlanta United or the Falcons. Kanye West there to get his fans excited for his newest album, Donda, named after his late mother.
Not a lot of vanity there, am I right? Olivia Rodrigo visited the White House to raise awareness around coronavirus. Oh God, I did not want to relive COVID, but here we are. Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton finally tied the knot and got married. A couple of billionaires, Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos, both launched rockets into space. Unfortunately, they both came back. The hashtag Free Britney was trending. I think it might still be trending as Britney Spears. The number one song in America was BTS's Butter, and the number one movie in America was Marvel's Black Widow, starring Scarlett Johansson and introducing Florence Pugh to the MCU. The reason I'm bringing up stuff from 4 years ago is because that's the last time that I can confidently say that I would recommend a film that was part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I have been checked out since then. Is Thunderbolts going to be a recommend for me, or is it going to be me telling you guys to calm the F down because it's not that great? Let's find out. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the garage. Gerald here with you. I just got home from my screening for the new MCU film Thunderbolts. It's basically the MCU's version of DC's Suicide Squad, in that it is a group of ragtag kind of rejects, anti-heroes, in some cases maybe even villains, that band together to become the heroes. And they kind of cross over to the good side as opposed to the dark side. I have a couple of angles I want to take in talking about this movie with you. This will be spoiler free as it literally is just coming out today as I'm recording. But my approach to this review, I'm going to tell you what I thought about the film, but I kind of want to talk about a couple more kind of abstract, larger issues when it comes to the MCU. I'll elaborate. Let's talk about Thunderbolts. After finding themselves ensnared in a death trap, 7 disillusioned cast-offs must embark on a dangerous mission that will force them to confront the darkest corners of their past. Thunderbolts is directed by Jake Schreier, who is a dude that I'm not familiar with, although I do know that he directed the television limited series Beef that aired on Netflix a couple years ago, which I really, really liked. Over the last couple of months, because of the trailers and the marketing for Thunderbolts, in addition to some of the cast members, which we'll talk about specifically in a second, I found myself kind of getting excited for an MCU film, which has not happened in a very long time. Like I said in my cold open, it's really been 4 years since I've had any pre-gaming level of excitement for one of these movies. I wanted to kind of have that up front to let you guys know, to pull that curtain back if you're tuning into my channel or my reviews for the first time, so that you don't think I'm some kind of MCU fanboy. I do appreciate it. I have my Avengers t-shirt on, which I've owned for several years, and I love the first couple of phases of the MCU. But as we got a little further along, it got a little less and less interesting, a little more and more formulaic, until I eventually just cashed out and put my chips in the table. The reason that I kind of lost interest in these movies and are not invested in them anymore, and like I said, there's virtually no level of excitement for the new ones, is because of the convoluted storytelling that we now find ourselves in. I think this is the 38th feature film since 2008 in this universe. That doesn't even count television shows, spin-offs, anything like that. It got to a point where instead of being entertained by these things, and instead of being okay with varying knowledge and background on characters, you had to be really educated in what you were watching, and you had to be able to tie certain things together in order to understand the next movie, or certain references or characters in certain films that tie to other films, or other things that they had done in a TV show. And I know people have heard this argument 1,000 times, but it is an argument that I stand by. So I'm going to start with the good, now that I've given you that preface, with Thunderbolts. I liked Thunderbolts. Liked it, okay? There's going to be a little caveat to this. When I covered Brave New World on my podcast, I told my podcast partner at the time that I thought what the MCU needed to do was to worry about the project in front of them. Worry about telling a story encapsulated in the 2-hour window that they have when people are in the theater or watching it on streaming, or even if it's a show. Now, Thunderbolts, I don't think they heard me when I said that about 6 months ago. They did that in this film. This is a movie that can be wholly digested by a viewer with literally minimal knowledge of anything that's come before it in the MCU. Now, of course, if you're familiar with it, if you know the lore, if you've seen all the other stuff, if you've seen the stuff that these particular characters have popped up in, then of course you're going to have a better understanding of what's playing out in Thunderbolts. However, you don't need to, and I'm saying that based on experience, because since like 2021, I've very casually been following this. I haven't watched any of the TV shows since WandaVision. The movies that I have seen, I haven't seen all of them, by the way, but the ones I have seen, I've completely forgotten about. I don't remember any of the side characters or end credit sequences, none of that stuff. The reason I enjoyed it is because it was the movie, if that makes sense. Thunderbolts was the film. We were following this group of characters, led by Florence Pugh, who plays Yelena, which is essentially the new Black Widow since Scarlett Johansson's character has moved on from the franchise. I don't feel like I'm spoiling that if I tell you what happened to her, but I'll just say she's not in the franchise anymore. That's her big sister. Florence Pugh is kind of taking over that mantle, and she's leading the charge in this film. That's another thing that's really cool about this movie, is that it's in the MCU. Obviously a lot of tie-ins and a lot of characters that we've seen in other projects, but it doesn't feel like an MCU movie, which ironically may be why it's my favorite one in like 4 years in this universe. 9/10 of the movie is focused on what we're dealing with in this particular script and story. It centers around mental health. It talks about alcoholism. It's a story of estranged parents and children. I love the relationship between Yelena and David Harbour's Red Guardian. That was a beautiful relationship, and the way they kind of touched on that and the flashbacks, both of them obviously suffering the sadness of not having ScarJo there anymore. I felt it. There was a little twinkle in my eye during a couple scenes with those two characters in particular in this movie. You also have Sebastian Stan. Winter Soldier remains one of my favorite MCU films, period. It's probably like my number 2 or 3 in the entire universe. And Bucky Barnes is a big part of that, played by Sebastian Stan, and he's back here, kind of a co-lead with Florence Pugh in this movie. You know, there's a lot of practical effects in this movie. There's actual sets that are not CGI. They filmed on location for a lot of it in Atlanta. And I know the Avengers Tower is there, like a replica of it. There's stunt work in this movie that you can clearly tell, cable work. I mean, of course there is CGI in the film, but it's not like a unicorn vomited all over your screen in the last 20 minutes of every other MCU movie. In fact, this movie, the climactic ending or battle or whatever you want to call it, is very like nuanced and layered and emotional and has a weight to it. It's not just ships flying in and heroes spinning around and throwing each other into buildings. It's like a much more human climactic battle sequences that we get in the final act of the movie, really throughout the entire movie. And I found that really refreshing. And you know, whenever a city is under attack, obviously everybody in the city is in danger, right? So, you know, Superman or Batman or Iron Man or whoever is by default or inherently trying to save the people in that city because it's blowing up and shit's falling out of the sky. And, you know, he's trying to save people because he's a good guy. He's the hero. It's a classic hero story, right? In Thunderbolts, we get a great sequence where like a crane falls over because of something that happens and there's a helicopter spinning out of control. So all this kind of cliched stuff, if you will, in a superhero film where all these people below in the street, because in New York City, are in danger. You know, if a helicopter falls on you in a city block, you're not going to make it. I mean, at best, you're going to be in the hospital for months. At worst, you're going to be underground. The Thunderbolts are all there, and they're going through these different interactions with the public to save them. Saving a little girl, you know, stopping the asphalt from the road from falling on a family. The reason I'm bringing it up is it reminded me of the sequence in Superman 2. One of my favorite superhero sequences, I'll try to put a little clip over this for you. Christopher Reeve in Superman 2, when he's fighting General Zod and the trio, and it's all happening in the street there, and the public's watching like it's a WWE main event. And the villains don't care about the people, and they're trying to basically kill Superman. And if they kill other people and they get in the way, then so be it. Whereas Superman is at a disadvantage because he's the hero, so he can't just fight back. He has to fight back and protect all the bystanders. And we get a very, very similar setup with the Thunderbolts and the general public in the New York streets in that scene. And I love that callback to like classic 80s and even 90s like superhero films, because in the MCU, another thing that I was kind of bummed about, and also in the Zack Snyder DCEU, is that the heroes aren't saving the public. You know what I mean? Like they're on a mission to get the Infinity Stones, or to like, stop the, portal from opening so that, and all this shit and preventing war. But it's like, what's going on with humanity? Let's save humanity. Keep it simple. People love a simple hero story. And Thunderbolts, I thought, did a really good job at that, and also paying homage to that kind of, frankly, MIA storyline in a lot of these movies as of late. Now, the thing that I said I was going to give you, an asterisk, no pun intended, because of the whole Thunderbolts thing. At the end of my discussion, I like the movie. I'm recommending this film. Now, the caveat or the asterisk that I wanted to put at the end of this discussion is we need to calm down, because what I think is happening is that either the comic book superhero super fans are out in droves here, okay? And they're just like, yes, we are so back because an MCU movie doesn't suck, basically. I messed up before I went to see it, and I saw all these great reviews from people. I think it's like a 95 on Rotten Tomatoes, which is high. I liked it, but it's high. And I feel like we're over showering these movies with not just love, but like, I saw one of my friends that I follow, that I'm not going to name names, that has a YouTube channel, that said it was the greatest MCU movie ever. And I'm like, what? No, it's like, almost objectively, it's not. Now, it's good. I just gave you a lot of reasons why I really like it. But I just feel like as a society, I don't know if it's post-COVID or if it's just because we're so hungry for the MCU to be back, that we're kind of over-bloating our perception of this movie the first, or maybe the first couple times we see it, and then I think it's a disservice to a certain extent for the general population if critics do that, because the expectation's too high. Most people that are into superhero films, or even action films really, are going to like this. You don't have to say masterpiece and greatest MCU movie ever and we're so bad. You don't have to say all that shit. The project's going to speak for itself, and if you oversell it, then I feel like the people going to see it that aren't deep into the lore and the critical acclaim and all that could possibly be let down, because it's going to be hard to live up to that. So what I'm going to tell you in my review is kind of what I've already said. It's a good movie, and I love how it's different than everything else that's come before it in the MCU, because it's telling the stories of these main characters that we get in Thunderbolts, and the depression and their history and how they're suffering from that regret and grief. And it's a found family film, because these 5 characters come together kind of on accident and end up being each other's brothers and sisters and support throughout the movie for, yes, the issue at hand in the film, the antagonistic narrative in the film, but more so for their lives, to have people that are there for them and that they can be there for. And that's why it's a beautiful MCU movie, because none of the other ones are really like that. It's about the characters and their connections to each other, which is what I loved about this movie, because this is, for all intents and purposes, with the exception of maybe Ghost, not a lot of extracurricular supernatural powers. A couple of them have the super serum, they're super soldiers, but they're just people. They're just people that are sad, and they're looking for a purpose, and they get it in this movie, and then this narrative and the way the screenplay was written, it really did them a great service, I think. Just one more real point I want to make, which is also kind of praising the movie, is that there's some elements of surrealism in the film that are shot practically. I think they made various sets, and they're all, think of them kind of dream sequences. So there's different dream sequences, but that's not what it is, but kind of think about it that way. It's happening not in real life, kind of in their minds. And these rooms or these buildings or whatever were kind of constructed practically for those scenes, and they were built or made, or the camera was shot in a way to make it look kind of not real, not of this world, but obviously the characters were still real and what they were feeling and experiencing was real. I love that element too. The main negatives, aside from this just being a weird group of heroes to have in here, is, the Julia Louis-Dreyfus character. I'm not up on the lore, but I didn't really understand the hard right turn with her character, and I'm not going to spoil it, so I can't really ask for help with that. If you've seen it and you want to throw me a DM, then please do, but I just didn't get how she got from the last time I saw her to what she was by the end of this movie. It was just kind of weird. I didn't feel like it was earned or explained to me. I was actually writing a point, maybe even 2 points higher, until we got to the last 5 minutes and the end credits, because then, unfortunately, it did what I hate every MCU movie does, and that's the need to connect it to everything else. Thunderbolts didn't worry about that at all for 95% of this movie. And then out of nowhere, in the last scene and the end credits, that's all it is. This is what we're doing next time. This is what you guys just did. This is what we're going to do in the next movie. Here comes the next movie. Here's this, here's that. Remember this? Here, we're going to do this. That was, I'm obviously paraphrasing because I don't want to spoil for people that haven't seen it. That's literally how it felt in the last 5 minutes through the credits. If you want to throw in an Easter egg, or even a few, great. Because then only the diehards are going to notice that. But they are going to notice it. And they're going to be pleased, right? The general audience is not going to notice it. But when you make people, make's not the right word, but when you put in an end credit scene that you have to sit through 7 or 8 minutes of credits to get to, and it's literally a blueprint for the next film and exposition that literally like you're pitching the movie to us. I hate that. I hate it. And that's why I've been out on the MCU, and the Thunderbolts was so refreshing, so original, and like I've already said a few times, so unlike any of that. From the action set pieces, the effects, the acting was very different. It was a very dark story, and they were very brooding, kind of dark characters. There was some humor in the film, mostly from David Harbour's character. He was hilarious as a Red Guardian, but they ruined it, in my opinion, at the end, because you didn't need to do all that. You could have put those, and if those of you have seen it will know what I'm talking about, particularly the end credits and then kind of the announcement at the end of the movie. You could have put those in there in other ways to spark the interest of those that are looking for that, which is really the super fans, but you didn't. You hammered everybody over the head with it. So now, if that next project that you just pumped up for 20 minutes at the end of this movie doesn't live up to the hype or doesn't connect back to this one, then that's a whole thing. Florence Pugh owns this goddamn movie, dude. She is so good. And her performances, I'm not even joking, is Oscar worthy. She is a broken character who is dealing with the loss of her sister that was also her mentor and idol. And she's still carrying that grief. She's living her life and making her choices essentially to escape that grief. And she has a huge void in her soul. And Florence Pugh sold it. I mean, she absolutely had me feeling for her. And she was great. David Harbour was great. Sebastian Stan's one of the most exciting actors we have working right now, just coming off of an Oscar nomination and then going to do this. And then who the hell knows what he's going to do next. He's got a very exciting career going on right now. And he was good in here as a very familiar Bucky Barnes also. I really loved everybody in it, with the exception of Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Her performance was a little weird to me, even though I love her. I hope I haven't forgotten to make any of the points I wanted to make. Basically, I wanted to tell you guys that I recommend the film and that I think it's good. But I also think that we're possibly blowing it up a little bit too much online the last couple of days. Those folks that saw it early and some reviews that I read, it's not a masterpiece. Now, of course, that's my opinion, and it's subjective. I understand that. But I would be extremely hesitant to call this anything even remotely close to a masterpiece. With that being said, I will segue to my score. Out of 10, I'm going to give Thunderbolts, with a little asterisk mark, a 7 out of 10. I do recommend it, which is actually really huge for me. If you know me, if you know my channel, I just don't do these movies anymore. I really don't. I got a weird relationship with not just the MCU, but superhero movies in general. However, this is the first really good one that I've seen that I want to rewatch in a long time. Was I too harsh on the general kind of critical reception of this movie so far? Let me know what you guys think down below, and what you thought of Thunderbolts, if you saw it, or are you planning on seeing it. I'll see you guys out here next time. Asterisks, perhaps, in the garage.